Minister, good morning to you.
Morning.
I think we need to look forward, not worry about too much about how bad the situation has been. If we do look forward, how are you forecasting 2021 is going to be for Jamaica?
Well, 2021 has not started well for most of us in the Caribbean. As a matter of fact, most of us in the Americas, because our source markets, the US, Canada, and the UK, have all but shut down. And so the traffic from those destinations into us has been very, very slow. In fact, the flow has been anemic. So our winter, which is January to April, that constitute more than 40% of our earnings as well as our arrivals, has all but shut down. And so we have not started very well at all.
So essentially 2020, the peak season for you is traditionally, obviously the winter time as well as the summer. Do you believe, if you look at, say, European visitors, do you believe that you can rescue 2021's summer season?
I believe that summer is possible. There are indications so far. The pacing so far for summer has been reasonable. And the expectation of the UK opening up somewhat after April, the US having vaccination going reasonably well, with expectations of being perhaps around 50% by June, we should see some level of improvement. So I believe we can rescue summer. Some form of cruise may also begin sometime in June. So we're expecting that some possibilities exist, Richard, for a level of rescuing for summer.
Right. Now, the issue, of course, turns then into what will you require? I assume you're considering the introduction of vaccine passports or some form of vaccine requirement for visitors. There's mixed views on this, Minister. Some people say it's the way forward, like Australia. Others say no, it creates a discriminatory effect. Where does Jamaica stand on vaccine passports?
Well, you know, the mixed views is very much here. My own take on it is that when I look at how the world is proposing to vaccinate itself over the next 5.1 years, and with the expectation that a 75% coverage would give some level of normalcy, I cannot accept that we would begin to have a vaccine requirement as a condition for travel immediately. I imagine that perhaps down the road, but certainly not immediately. If that happens, we are going to find the level of discrimination and inequities prevailing at a level that may be very disturbing, if not disrupting, to global peace. Because the larger and more affluent countries have literally cornered the vast majority of the vaccine that's available. The last stats I had on it was that 75% of the vaccine available is already cornered by 10% of the world's largest countries. Where that leaves small countries such as ours, and particularly those that are highly tourism dependent, like the Caribbean and the Philippines and the Maldives and so on, is in a state where we're going to be left behind. So if the politics of vaccine is to be played out, then the smaller countries are going to be left behind, and that will cause quite a bit of disruptiveness, not just within our own space, but in the global community. Yeah, my take on the matter, therefore, is perhaps testing should continue, and negative test requirement for entry into countries could be a way forward. Vaccine will definitely be part of the mix, but I cannot see it as being the reason or the raison for travel in the short term.
But you're in a difficult place here, aren't you? Because on the one hand, your own people, your citizens, you don't want a vaccine requirement, a vaccination passport requirement, because you want them to be vaccinated as well, and you don't want the economy to suffer. But your main tourism comes from those countries that are highly vaccinated, and those countries may, the people in those countries may demand that they only go to places that require other tourists to be vaccinated. So you're caught in the middle.
Yes, indeed. You're quite right. And that's part of the concern. And diplomacy has to be engaged here, Richard, where we have to look at how do we have a balance. And that discussion will have to take place at many levels, including the tourism authorities, the UNWTO, WTTC, and other mega entities that help to manage the industry globally. I think also that local diplomatic arrangements will have to be engaged in that regard, because you're right. The larger countries that are highly vaccinated will require, and indeed I fear that a tiering system might even ensue, where they begin to categorize countries in relation to the level of vaccination that they have achieved. And that would be, I think, devastating for us, particularly those who continue to suffer. I make the point very quickly for you that of the 100 countries so far, according to Bloomberg, that has had any level of vaccination, most of the third world is out of it. There are 130 other countries in the world who have not had a single dose of vaccine, or indeed a full program planned as to when their vaccination will begin. So immediately we see how the anomalies are going to play out and the difficulties that will ensue in terms of global politics in this regard.
We've got the Global Travel and Tourism Resilience Council, which is creating and curating various sessions and events, including this one, to pull together the issues that we're learning around crises. How can this council be looking? I mean, it's eminent members, self-included. This is a major crisis, but I assume that the Resilience Council is going to be there for other crises as things move forward.
Well, the Resilience Council, of which I'm co-chair with Dr. Talib Rifai, along with the Global Resilience and Crisis Management Center, are two of the key, I think, institutions that are at the forefront of looking at how to drive equity and fairness within the industry overall. But the more important role with them, Richard, is how to help countries to build capacity to withstand disruptions such as pandemics, to manage it, to recover, and to thrive afterwards. And I think that their role is going to be heightened during this period, especially in getting the
Right.
small and less resourced countries to develop the capacity to understand what is required of them and how they should act. But I think finally they have to create a stronger voice, and they will have to collaborate with a number of other global networks to ensure a better understanding of what is required of everybody, but more so to develop within them the capacity to act and the will to act, because that is going to drive the necessary action that will enable resources to be had.
So Minister, I want to finish talking about your own country again, Jamaica, and the tourism companies, the travel companies, the hotels, the airlines, they're suffering. So they only have limited capacity for investment and to pick up the slack of jobs, furloughs, and things like that. Jamaica clearly still needs to put forward a first-class tourism product, and that is going to require government to borrow, to take on debt, to go to the international lending organizations, because if you don't, along with other Caribbean countries, you'll be left behind. You're in a very tricky position.
Indeed, I tell you, we've been grappling with that. Well, fortunately for Jamaica, if this pandemic continues much further than now, we could be in a difficulty. But for the moment, Jamaica is faring reasonably well because we've managed our economy fairly well, and we've had reserves that we are able to draw on now, and we were able to create stimulus packages that have enabled the industry to sort of hang on, if you will. But you're right, we would very well have to go to multilateral sources for support. But the good news, if there's any that we could draw on, is that Jamaica continues to have very favorable investment responses. Only last week, I had to meet with a large group out of Europe looking at new properties here in Jamaica. The investors who are building new rooms are still on track to build, and those who are expanding are also still expanding. So far for us, we haven't lost the appetite for investment, but I can't say that to be the same for all of the Caribbean areas. So you're absolutely right. The Caribbean leaders will have to go to dig deep and if find multilateral partners and to create also very favorable climate for investment, which will result perhaps in a number of concessionary arrangements that would put back their own revenue development programs, but will create jobs, and that will be good for the future development of the region.
Minister, you have Jamaica Cares, which is a sort of a suite of policies designed for what?
Well, designed to create confidence in the destination by looking at the new traveler, the generation COVID, as we call them, Gen C, which really is a collapsing of all the demographics that we have known, you know, the millennials, the baby boomers, etc., coming together to create one new demographic that is going to be driven by health security arrangements, by safety and seamlessness, and also a level of technological support to enable touchless arrangements as you manage the COVID pandemic. And so Jamaica has developed this suite of policies and strategies to ensure that the visitors who come to Jamaica are safe, secure, and as protected as is possible from any from any spread of the disease. The enablement that this will provide goes beyond the cost of putting this package together, because it gives a feeling and a sense of satisfaction and comfort that when you come to Jamaica, anything happens to you, you'll be covered. And so there's an insurance component to it, which enables for testing if necessary, and if you're positive, hospitalization. If you are asymptomatic, you can be isolated if you wish, but you'll be enjoying all the wonderful assets that are still available to us through what we have called the elegant, resilient corridor, which is our bubble to ensure that you are removed from the rest of the infection possibilities in the wider community.
So the plan is basically to say to people, if you've got it, you'll be treated. I mean, the idea is what? To create a sense of security?
Yes, beyond security too, but also to create a cost-effective way of ensuring that you enjoy your vacation, and the event that anything happens to you, you're secure and you don't have to find additional resources to cover your costs. And I think that is a very, very powerful message and statement that we could make to enable a visitor to know that you are in a pandemic, problems may happen. And if it happens, you would not have to have any additional expenditure to get treatment to be dealt with, but also you can be repatriated to your country within that same cost arrangement.
Minister, thank you so much. I appreciate your time. Next time we speak, God willing, we will be in your beautiful country, looking at the wonderful beaches, enjoying the gentle, warm breeze, and socially distanced having a drink. I look forward to that, Minister.
Me too, and I look forward to having you sooner than later. So we continue to manage this pandemic and do what is necessary to beat it off and say goodbye, pandemic. Let's go back to normalcy. Thank you so much, Richard.
Thank you.